Dude, Justin, what's up, man?
How's it going, man? I don't know.
Where are you at right now?
Just got to the gym. We're having a little birthday party for there's a little girl that used to train with us. So she was like a niece to me that passed away from of cancer about a year ago. Tomorrow's her birthday, so we're doing a little birthday party in our kids' class this afternoon.
Oh, that's sad. Dang.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
rough.
Do you have kids?
I do have a 13-year-old.
13-year-old? Yeah, I've got a little 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old.
Yeah,
It's a blast, isn't it?
man, it's the most fulfilling thing that I do. Absolutely is being a dad. I was something I always was looking forward to. I always wanted a family and kids and stuff, and the last 13 years have been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you married?
No.
Yeah, same. Single dad life, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I get it, man. It's not fun.
Yeah, it gets rough. I actually moved about 5 or 6 years ago. I'm from Tennessee, East Tennessee, like the Gatlinburg area. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Oh yeah.
I moved about 4 hours away to North Carolina. So my daughter still lives in Tennessee. So every weekend I drive 4 hours up there and get her, and 4 hours back here to hang out for a couple of days. So it gets tough, yeah, for sure. The those exchanges are not for the faint of heart.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah. I don't know how many people out there might be listening that are the single parent life, but yeah, when you drop your kid off and they for whatever reason in that moment don't want to leave, because sometimes they do. They're like, yeah, cool, but sometimes when they don't want to, man, it is gut wrenching. It'll just
Yeah,
wreck you, man.
it's heartbreaking for me. It's like I have to do that and then turn around and drive 4 hours home. So it's like 4 hours of sitting in the car, just can't take your mind off of it. Is rough, man. But I think ultimately, you know, where she has the best life, having two happy homes. So um, I think ultimately it works out.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very tough thing, very tough to navigate, but it sounds like you stayed in it, and that's cool. I
Yeah, for
love it.
sure.
All right, so dude, let's dive into this, man. I'm really thankful that you said yes to a podcast. I got your contact from Matthew O'Brien. Every day is Friday, 365. We were talking about you, man. Just really impressed, just super impressed, dude. And I'd love for you to share with the people as much or as little as you want, but about your story. You know how you got into MMA, why you got into it, why you chose bare knuckle, because that's bonkers.
Yeah,
The whole thing, and then we can talk about the fastest knockout in MMA history. That's correct, right? Fastest in MMA history.
it's in all combat sports. So MMA, boxing, bare knuckle, any kind of fighting that there is. It's the fastest in all of fighting. Yeah,
Dude,
but
I've watched that clip. I'm not kidding you, probably 100 times. It is amazing.
yeah, man.
Um,
Growing up, I was always a rough kid. Always getting into stuff. Kind of an adrenaline junkie. Looking for the highest rocks to jump off of, and um, you know that always kind of led into who's the toughest kid, and a bunch of little schoolyard fights and stuff like that. And um, I don't know, I just fell in love with it just as a young kid. The competition aspect of it. I played sports my whole life, but there's not another sport that's this mono and mono. It's like this is the ultimate deciding factor. I feel like, um, and so I just fell in love with it because of that. As soon as I got an opportunity to, when I was in school and stuff, there weren't any really gyms around to train at, so I never got to pursue it until I was probably 19, 20, when I finally got into an MMA gym. And yeah, it's been pretty much full bore since then. I mean, I took probably 5 or 6 years off after I had my kid, and just as we were going through some of the tough stuff, as far as the court and all that. Um, just didn't have time to train. It was priorities at that point, obviously, but um, then once I started getting older, you know, it was kind of one of those things where I had been training for 15 years. You know, the sport was MMA at the time was, you know, the only thing I did. I watched it. You know, it was the only sport that I watched. It was the only thing I did outside of work was train. And um, so, you know, I knew that if I wanted to make a run at anything, I had to do it now. I was 32 at the time. And like I said, I had been off for several years. So I decided to come back into MMA and went straight into the pros because at that point it was like, you know, either go back and fight top level amateurs who are going to go pro right after this fight or fight, you know, new pros. So you're basically the same level competition. Is just, are you doing it as a professional or an amateur? So I just went ahead and dove in the deep end and found the toughest fight that I could as a pro in MMA, and that didn't go the greatest for me. Um, I went up a couple weight classes for that fight, just for the opportunity. You know, I was just willing to do whatever I needed to get my foot in the door. And then a couple more fights after that, pro MMA, where I had opponents pull out like days before the fight. So then I ended up having to move up a weight class or two, fight guys with, you know, 3-4 times the experience as I had, just to stay on cards. So my MMA career just never really panned out. Didn't go that well. But when I went pro in MMA, I was already looking at bare knuckle, just because it it's so much more, it's so much less involved. I guess, you know, it's just hands. So with MMA, you know, you're working on hands, feet, elbows, knees, then the whole ground game, the whole, you know, getting to the ground. Like there's just so much more of it. You know, it's where with this, it's just throwing punches. You know, it's what we've all done since we were little kids. The first thing you learned how to do is throw a punch. So, um, you know, and it kind of, the brutality of it kind of spoke to me, just because I don't shy away from stuff like that. You know, like I said, I was always kind of an adrenaline junkie. You know, the more scary, I guess, for most people that it is the more exciting it is for me. So I knew that I had the opportunity to excel there. And so I started, you know, putting feelers out there right away. And as soon as I found an opportunity and a way to get in, I jumped on it. I had a couple of rough fights in the beginning. My first fight, my opponent missed weight by like 5 pounds. I almost killed myself making weight. And so that one didn't go that one didn't go my way. And then my next one, I had a good fight lined up, and it was in Orlando. And on Tuesday evening, I got a phone call that my opponent pulled out, but that I was supposed to still get on the plane Wednesday morning. We'll figure it out. We'll find somebody to fight. You know, get to Orlando. They found somebody who was scheduled in the area, and his fight had also fallen through. So it worked out. We fought, and about 15 seconds in, we got into a weird exchange, and I dislocated my collarbone. And so I kept trying to fight. I ended up taking a knee because I didn't know what was going on at the time. It was almost like punching in a dream. You know, I landed a right hand that kind of stuck him, and when I tried to throw another one, it was just like I just couldn't throw it. You know, I didn't know what was going on. So I took a knee just to figure, okay, what are we going to do here? And decided, you know, just going to get up, switch stances, just go hard from southpaw and try to put him away. That was the first time I'd ever taken a knee and had like an 8 count or anything, you know. So I like backed up from him, took the knee, waited for the referee to come to me. I'm expecting the ref to come over and say 1, 2, you know, and count it out. Well, I don't know. This is kind of just my ignorance, I guess, but somebody else's. As soon as you take the knee, there's another cage side or ringside ref starting the count as the referee inside the ring gets your opponent over to his corner. So when he comes to me, he says 5, 6, because he's just keeping the count going. And I jumped up immediately. I'm on my feet when he says 8, looking at him, ready to fight. The commentators are, you know, talk about it, but he called the fight off at that point. So that one I feel like kind of got stolen away from me. And then, you know, I was 0-2 going into this at 37 years old. And when I got this last opportunity, it was, you know, I was a big underdog in the fight. The guy that I fought was 11-1 pro MMA. He had been offered contender series fights and stuff, and he's on the radar. Will most likely end up in the UFC at some point. And so he was a 9-1 favorite going into that fight. But I knew, this is the last opportunity that I've got. If I want to pursue this, I have to make a statement here. So as soon as I got the name, I knew the guy. We were from the same region, so I was familiar with him, and I knew that this was my opportunity.
Yeah.
So I went up a weight class to fight him just for the opportunity. But I knew, the game plan for 6-8 weeks was, as soon as that bell rings, we're going forward as hard as we can, and if I can touch him, the fight's over. And so, I'd sent text messages out the night before, like after weigh-ins, telling people, look, I'm going for the fastest knockout in history. And at the time, I didn't really think about it being all combat sports. I was just thinking the fastest in BKFC, and then, so we go in there, man, and it plays out exactly like I had envisioned it 1,000 times leading up to it. The right hand lands. I see him go face down. I planned it out to the throat slash, the whole 9 yards, and yeah, man, it was incredible. Just, I've had a 1,000, well laid plans that obviously never went the way I thought they were going to, and this one, for it just to fall into place perfectly. I think it was just, spoke to the fact that I had stuck it out in this game for so long, and when a lot of guys would have said, you know what, I'm just gonna go do something else. Like, I just don't want to get beat anymore.
Yeah.
Quitting was just not something that I ever could picture myself doing. I knew that I had the potential to be somebody and to make a name for myself if I was persistent and didn't give up, and just needed things to fall my way one time. I had a bunch of things that were going against me, and not no excuses on any of that stuff. It is what it is. I wasn't able to overcome the adversity at the time, but I learned tons of lessons leading up to this point, and I feel like it all prepared me for that moment, So now the adversity is behind me. I know what all that's like, and I think for a lot of guys in this game, and it was for me for a long time, fear of losing was, like people talk about, being scary to go in there and fight somebody or whatever. But the fight itself was scary to me. I'm not worried about getting injured or anything like that, but losing in front of all your family and friends, and they know that you've been working your ass off for 8 weeks to do this. You put everything into it, and then if you go out there and in under a minute you get finished, it's that was the hardest thing for me to get over. And I lost fights as an amateur because of the fear, just like I couldn't pull the trigger because I was afraid of losing, and then that caused me to lose the fights. But now, I've been through that adversity, and I know that, you can lose, and people aren't going to just jump off the bandwagon. As long as you're still pushing, and people believe in you and see how hard you're working, they're still going to be there and love you no matter what happens, and so that's made it to where at this point, when I go in there, there's such a euphoria around me. It's just I'm completely free. If you watch the video back, we're in his hometown. He's got, sold tens of thousands of dollars worth of tickets. When I'm walking out, the whole place is booing me. But when I get in there, man, I just walk to the center. When they're announcing my name, I walk to the center of the ring and just owned it. I just knew this is my time, and there was zero anxiety. It was just a purpose, and there was a goal, and just going in there to achieve that goal. There was nothing holding us back. I think that's the biggest thing that I've gained from all this, is that now, a man with nothing to lose is a scary man. And I got to the point where I had nothing to lose. Like, there wasn't any, couldn't get any worse. So when I got to that point, that's when everything just, I feel like, turned around, and now the trajectory is totally different, and we're looking at a whole another world now.
Man, that is so cool. Yeah. A man with nothing to lose is a scary man. Golly, that's so true. Yeah, you put a man's back against the wall. Yeah, you'll find out real quick. What
Yep.
he'll find out real quick what he's capable of. I'm sure you found out like, man, I'm actually capable of this. Holy shit.
Yeah. And in the back of my mind, I always knew that I had the skills and and just the natural um, attributes to be good at this. I just couldn't put everything together at one time. And then the last camp, everything just fell in perfectly. Weight was on point the whole time. Obviously, I went up in weight, so I was actually the fight was at 145 pounds. I accepted the fight 8 weeks out. I was 143 when they called me, so I had to put on a few pounds just to go up and fight him.
Yeah.
Um, so that was cool, not having to worry about that part of it. Um, and then, you know, just knowing that, like I said, when we went in there, that was by far the biggest underdog I've ever been. Um, him being a 9-1 favorite, like you got to lay $900 on this guy in order to win 100 if he wins. So, nobody there gave me a shot. There was only a handful of people there who knew what was about to happen. And those people that came with me, they knew that I came to rob a bank, and that's what I was about to do.
Yeah. So what was the biggest difference you think? Do you think it was the visualization? Do you think it was the desperation? Like what made that moment possible? I guess is how I want to ask that question. Cuz you mentioned
I
you saw everything from start to finish to the celebration, like you knew I'm doing this. Was that the biggest separator?
Yeah, I mean, I think this time there was, again, I'm not, sounds like I'm making excuses. I'm definitely not. But when I made my debut at BKFC, as I was in camp for that 2 weeks prior, my best friend of my whole life, my cousin, he's 2 years older than me. We lived 5 minutes apart our whole lives. Spent every day together. Um, Passed away pretty suddenly, and I was in
Okay.
camp. Like he was, supposed to be going to Miami with me for this big moment and everything. And during camp, he his liver shut down, and he went to the hospital, and they made some mistakes working on him in the hospital, and basically cut his bowels and gave him sepsis, and didn't treat it in time. And a few days later, they did an MRI and found out he had been brain dead for a couple of days because the sepsis had basically dropped his blood pressure so low that it killed him. And then 6 months prior to that, we found out that one of my best friend's daughter, 7 years old, had stage 4 cancer, and there was no way around, uh, her losing her life eventually. So, going into those fights, I just had all that on me. My last professional MMA fight, I woke up on Friday morning of the fight to a phone call that my grandmother had fallen in the middle of the night by herself and bled out in the middle of the night and died. Um, and then had to go fist fight somebody that night. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you're able to channel that emotion, but other times the fight doesn't matter anymore. For me in those situations, the fight was kind of the furthest thing from my mind. Even though the goal was still it's never changed in that moment when I needed to be strictly focused on the task. I couldn't focus on the task at all. All I could really think about was what these people super close. I mean, these are, obviously my grandmother, my cousin, 7-year-old little girl that I had been very close to for a long time. Um, these are nothing else mattered except for what they were going through and had been through at that time. It was the only thing that I had on my mind. um, and then I think, after I had 6, 8 months, of time to really process everything and, um, kind of just deal with it a little more. Then I was able to, you know, I feel like I walked into the ring that night with them with me. At weigh-ins, I took a picture of my cousin and Roswell, the little girl, and I had those on the scale with me at weigh-ins. My corner had them in the ring, so as I'm circling the ring, my corner's got them sitting there. So the last thing I see before I go fight this guy is my reason why.
Yeah.
Um, and that was something that that kind of another turn. Was them losing their lives. They lost opportunities. They'll never have these opportunities. So I felt like it was an obligation for me to do everything I could to fulfill every opportunity I have.
Yeah.
Kind of in their honor. And because there was dreams that they had that were never going to be completed. So the fact that I was still here, I felt like I needed to do this for them, and so it's kind of fighting for a different purpose. And when you take it away from I want to win this fight just out of vanity or for my ego or whatever, and it turns it into I want to win this fight for them. I want to do something spectacular so that the world can see these people that I lost that made a huge impact on me, and you know somebody's going to hear their name because of this, and I'm going to use this opportunity to spread their name and spread awareness about the situations that they went through and the things that we had to go through,
Yeah.
as friends and family. Um, and so that's kind of I think the biggest. I think that was the biggest change was not fighting for myself anymore, um, but fighting to make sure that their names live on. Everywhere I go, they go. I'll be mentioning their names forever anywhere I go. So the further I can go, the longer they live. Um, and so that's all it's about at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man, that's really heavy stuff. It's kind of hard to, yeah, there's stories where people, they maybe experience something similar and for whatever reason they channel it and in that moment, whatever. But man, that's hard to like work through, right? That's
Yeah,
heavy, especially as a dad with a 7-year-old girl, man, a 7-year-old girl that dies from cancer, and you're a father yourself. You're a father to a little girl. It's like that's gut wrenching, man, because you feel that, like you feel that
yeah,
pain.
yeah. I mean, every day, she went through it for basically right at a year from her initial diagnosis, and about 6 months in, they did some scans and they couldn't find cancer at all. It was like an absolute miracle. She had stage 4 rhabdomyosarcoma, which is intense small tissue and bone cancer, and it spread very very rapidly through her. But the chemo, I guess, worked. They thought so. She was able to get off the chemo. She had a couple decent months, and then it came back with a vengeance. And when it came back, it wasn't 3 or 4 months before she was gone, and the chemo wouldn't touch it the second go around. So going through that and just seeing her every day, and seeing one of the most inspiring things about it was seeing her spirits through the whole thing were never broken. Like, she was the happiest kid. I mean, you couldn't. She was always trying to make somebody else smile through the whole thing. Um, and I know a lot of adults that would have, had they been in that situation and their life, you know, be hanging in the balance, they wouldn't be able to handle it the way she did. I got a special kind of strength from that. I feel like she taught me a special kind of strength through her, just the love that she continued to have throughout the whole thing. Knowing, I mean, I can't imagine being 7 years old and knowing you're not going to make it, but
Dude.
it didn't break her spirit. She was still coming to the gym. She couldn't train anymore, obviously, but she would still come to the gym, and she would be sitting over here with us, coaching the other kids. Telling them what to do, and um, even up to the last week, a week before she passed, her dad was competing in a jiu-jitsu tournament. She's sitting mat side, yelling at him, having to carry her to the chair. She can't really walk or anything anymore, but she's using every last bit of energy to cheer him on, and
Dang.
it's just something special that you know, as hard of a situation as it was, I think I definitely gained a lot of. I gained a lot from that little girl. Even though she's not here anymore, I still learn from her almost every day. And like I say, she's with me everywhere I go.
Gosh, man. Yeah, oof, that's powerful stuff. Dang. So what's changed for you now on the other side of all this? And you're the fastest knockout in all combat sports, and you're not a you're not a you're not a has been yet. You're a very much still in it, getting after it, crushing it, different motivation, dude. So what's on the horizon for Justin Watson?
And I'm just pushing to keep my name out there right now, and pushing for the biggest opportunities that I can get. Obviously, I was never a blue chip prospect. I was never the guy that was the promoter's boy or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm still not getting any love from the promotion. I'm not getting no promotion from them or anything like that. They're not on board yet. But all I need is one more fight, and we're gonna go out there and do the exact same thing. I mean, not the exact same thing, but we're gonna go finish somebody in spectacular fashion, and
Yeah.
and put the whole world on notice again. And at that point, they're not gonna have any choice. So I'm pushing right now for anything that I can get. I'm really pushing for Sturgis. They've got an event coming up at Bike Week in Sturgis in October or in August. So that's kind of what I'm pushing for at this point. I had an accident in December right after my fight, and got some injuries, tore some couple joints, got mangled up a little bit. So right now I'm trying to get a couple sponsors together to get some stem cells done to get that all straightened out. If I they want me to have surgery on them, and if I do that, then I'm going to be out for a year probably at minimum, because it'll be multiple surgeries. So we're looking at stem cells right now. If I can get in within the next few weeks or a month and get the stem cells done, then we can fight by August, I believe. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and I'm just looking for the biggest name, the biggest opportunity on the biggest card possible. Because, like I say, I'm 38 years old. I think I've still got, I think I can compete until I'm 45 in this. I think that's very doable. But 7 years goes about like that. So I'm not trying to waste any time. I need to go out there and capitalize on what I've done, and keep this train rolling. And really, really make a run at this thing.
Yeah, yeah. What's the oldest someone's competed in combat sports?
Um, Man, I don't even know. There's, I mean, like Mike Tyson fought Roy Jones Jr. or somebody last year, a couple years ago, and they were like 58 years old. Well, Mike fought Jake Paul. Mike was
Yeah, yeah.
58 when he fought Jake. But there's guys in BKFC right now that are in their 40s, mid to late 40s, and still, in the top five. That's one thing about BKFC that it offers you a little bit more longevity. In MMA, I would have a really hard time. I mean, I could be a world beater, but at 38 years old, when you're going against a 23-year-old full of testosterone, and you know, that's those grappling exchanges just get really tiring. Um, so that's not having to do that makes it a lot. I think you can sustain it for a little bit longer, and then people don't really think about. They think that it's kind of a brutal, barbaric thing because you're bare knuckle, and sometimes the lacerations get pretty gnarly, but
Yeah.
you're not taking nearly the amount of brain damage that you do in MMA or in boxing. In boxing, you got this big padded glove, and you just keep getting hit over and over and over again. And you get back up 15 times. Where in bare knuckle, eventually you're going to be cut, and the referee or doctor is going to stop the fight. So, and you don't have an extra, half pound hitting you every time. And then in MMA, obviously, you're taking knees and shins right across the face, and elbows to the head. And you can punch way harder with the glove on. Like I can't. I'll throw with everything I've got in me, regardless, because I'm not the brightest bulb out there. But if you throw with everything you got and you land on somebody's forehead, your hand's broken, and that's it. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
when your hand breaks in there in bare knuckle, once your hand breaks, it's pretty hard to do anything. I mean, there's you have the tape that's kind of keeping the bones together a little bit, but um, every time that you're hitting, it's knuckle to bone, and so yeah, you just you don't want to break your hands in there, and that keeps guys from hitting as hard, which ultimately, lessens the amount of brain damage that guys are taking.
Yeah. 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 I mean, are people breaking their hands pretty often in bare knuckle? I mean, like,
Yeah,
how do you
well,
not break your hand?
it's becoming a lot less. I mean, the guys that are the best in bare knuckle, if you really watch it, it's not the guys with tons of power. It's these guys that they just kind of short shot you, boom, boom, boom. But if I tap you right here 50 times, that thing's gonna be swollen up like a monster. It's gonna be cut.
Yeah.
It's not gonna hurt that much. Every time I'm hitting you, you're not gonna be like, oh man, I'm dizzy. But after 5 or 6 of those, you're getting swollen up and stuff. And so by not having to throw so hard, you don't really risk breaking your hands in those situations. So guys like one of the best examples of it is Kai Stewart, the 145-pound champion in BKFC. This kid, he's a wrestler by nature. I don't even know if he had any pro MMA fights, but I think he started out training MMA. But now he's 8-0, bare knuckle. But the kid just constant forward pressure and just pop, 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 pop. He's not rearing back and trying to take your head off with anything, but he's just constantly hitting you, doom, doom, doom. And like I say, if if somebody's hitting me like that, I'm going to keep coming forward because I'm not feeling the damage. But pretty quick, it's going to start showing. So
Yeah.
this guy just goes in there and just pieces dudes up because he just touches them 100 times. They're throwing these big shots, and he's not there when they throw it, and then he hits them 8 more times. And that's he's a really good example of using the boxing skill here rather than going in as more of a brawl, and just trying to use your power. There's a lot of guys and that's what's fun to watch is guys who just go in there and just have a bar fight. But that's not it's not the most sustainable way to fight.
Yeah.
It's not going to get you to the top. But the guys that are really good, like I say, they're just not throwing all that much power. And so broken hands, I think I don't have a number or something. I would just be pulling it out of my ass. But I would say you might have in BKFC they might have 1 or 2 handbrakes per 3 or 4 events. I would think maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
you're not getting like a broken hand every event or anything. And
Right.
I mean, in boxing, you those guys are breaking their hands all the time too. But it's because they have this false sense of security that glove's protecting them when it's not really. When you're throwing bombs, the glove's only doing it's just kind of protecting the skin. Really, it's not protecting the person that you're hitting's brain. Their brain's still getting rattled around, and the impact on your hand is still substantial. It's not you're not hitting a brick wall. He's got a little bit of padding there, but you believe that you can hit as hard as you can, and that's not the case. You'll still break your hand. So I believe there's way more broken hands in boxing and MMA than there are in bare knuckle, just because the guys know what they can and can't get away with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of similar with like football and rugby. People think that you
Mhm.
get a lot of like concussions in rugby, but you get less concussions in rugby because you don't have the false sense of security with the helmet and you're not, spearing everybody. It's very
Yeah,
similar.
that's one one thing people don't think about with football is like one of the worst things that's happened to football over the last 80 years is the innovation of the padding and technology and padding, because the better it gets, I mean, these guys are just hitting harder and harder, and you know, cars can't just smash each other like this over and over again and not break. Like, it doesn't matter how much padding you put on there, eventually that egg's going to crack. And I feel like that's one of the worst things that's happened to football in a long time um, is the amount of padding that they have, and so it allows them to just smash each other, and you get some dudes getting mangled up out there, man. It's a different world, you know. Like, I think, you know, people talk about how dangerous fighting is and whatnot, but you know, again, it's pretty much superficial. In boxing and MMA, you've got some more brain damage and whatnot, but you know, you got some of the nastiest injuries you see are in football and basketball. You know, guys turning their knee the wrong way, or you know, Achilles snapping in the middle of a game, and
Yep,
like
yep, yep.
some like bad stuff happens. You know, in
Oof.
MMA, you might see a broken leg once every few years or something, but for the most part, other than the brain damage, I guess most of the injuries are pretty superficial. And then if you're, you know, you can limit the brain damage if you fight smart, but that's something that's coming around more now. When I came up, going into a gym was just brain damage haven. You know, it was just like you go in there and just try to take everybody's head off. They're trying to take your head off. Now, you know, we've learned over the years how to train. So, like, you know, if I see our guys just going at it, like I'm jumping and stopping, you know, separating them, letting them go with different partners. Like, we're in the gym trying to get better. You're not trying to take each other's head off. But back in the day, that's every single round was try to knock this guy out. Like, and so, you know, us older cats have already sustained quite a bit of brain damage, I would imagine. But I think it's getting a lot better for the next generation. They're learning from our mistakes.
It's good. Brain. Yeah. You ever seen the movie Concussion with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's all I think about with that stuff. And you got guys like I'm sure there's others, but the only name I can think of right now is like Muhammad Ali. He's got a good bit of punch drunkenness, right? Like, isn't he kind of struggling?
I think he's dead now, but he did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty
That's
sure he died. Maybe not, but I'm pretty sure he died a few years ago. But yeah, he was, at least at the end. He was. It was kind of hard to understand him, and yeah, there's a lot of other guys that are like that. Um, and in MMA, I mean, some of the worst are like the early old school MMA guys. Like, I'm trying to think. Somebody, I was hearing somebody the other day that was like having trouble with just like everyday activities because of the brain damage and stuff, you know.
yeah,
But back then, like I say, you're in the gym 3 or 4 times a week, you know, sparring 7, 8 rounds where you're going, you're fighting. It's a full on fight. And then, you know, sometimes these guys are fighting 3, 4 times a night. Sometimes they're fighting back to back to back weekends. So, you know, back then it was a whole lot worse, obviously. And they've straightened a lot of it out. But those older cats, man, I think we are just now starting to see it because they're starting to get into their older years, you know. But like one, I don't know why the only name I'm thinking of right now from the old guard is like a Mark Coleman, and he's still pumping pretty good. But he went through his, you know, little spell too with like pain pills and stuff. I think, you know, just from injuries and everything. And I think he got to a point where he was, you know, in pretty rough shape, and he's back now, you know, training, and he's 60 something years old, you know. So what's it going to be like when he's 70? Who knows?
golly, man. Um, I was thinking of this question earlier. I wanted to ask you. So, as a kid, were you much of a fighter? Like, did you fight as a kid,
Yeah,
or you just?
yeah. I don't know what it was about the area that I grew up in, but that was just like a hobby. I don't know. It was like every day there were multiple fights in classrooms. You know, like teachers would leave, somebody was getting in a fight. You go outside in recess, somebody's getting in a fight, and a lot of times that ended up being me. I don't know. I have this weird like tick. If I see a friend of mine that's somebody's coming at my friend, or if I feel like my friend might be in danger, or somebody I care about's in danger, I just snap and go right into the fire at that point. So there was a lot of times where I had nothing to do with it. You know, my friend's either being a jackass or he's getting picked on. Either way, I usually pushed him out of the way, and I was the one in there scrapping. You know, even though it didn't have anything to do with me. But yeah, I think playing video
Is-
games probably played a factor in that. You know, at that time, like Mortal Kombat was the big thing was like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and
Yeah, yeah,
um, so I don't know, maybe something about that made me think that I was a tough guy or something. I don't know, but um,
yeah.
yeah, this is what we did.
Yeah, was it because that was my follow-up question to that was it like was it taught to you? Like did your parents teach you? I mean, I'm assuming they weren't saying like go fight, but did they teach you that defend mechanism, like that defend like hey, if your friend or your family like you go in, or is that just natural?
I think it's just natural. I mean, I didn't really have it. My dad wasn't my biological dad wasn't around. My mom got married for that, with her. Um, so I think that probably psychologically that's probably where a lot of it stems from is just thinking she needed protecting, and I was the only one that was going to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, I'm really thankful that you took the time to hop on this podcast, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for you, man. I really admire the fact that you just won't quit. Because man, I don't think that there's a lot of people like that out there. I think there's more people than we realize, but I still think there's a whole host of people that are just when things get tough, they run, and it's really cool to see. It's cool to see someone who's staying in it and getting after it, man. So it's inspiring.
You know, we don't think about this that much, but that's something that's kind of instilled in us from a young age. Is when things get tough, do something else. Like anybody who has a dream as a kid, or any big dream, they're always going to hear a million people say, "Look, you're wasting your time. Just be a normal person. Go get this normal job." And that's where I think a lot of that comes from. Is once those failures start to happen, and they start listening to all these outside voices, and um, then that's what they do. They just decide to go for a normal life, and for whatever reason, I just never thought that a normal life sounded intriguing to me. So lived a pretty normal life for the last 38 years. It's time to change that. I'm ready to live an extraordinary life, and that's what we're fighting for now.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Well, man, I will clip this out. I'll put it out on my Instagram. I'll invite you to collaborate. We'll give you, I mean, I'll give you as much promotion as I can. And my platform's not huge, but I will definitely put it out there. And man, I'm really encouraged by you, dude. It's, as someone who's pursuing stuff that's challenging, the podcast and social media and stuff, there's moments where I want to quit. So it's always encouraging to talk to someone who's in a fight that's like, I'm not quitting. So it inspires me. So like really, really glad that you were willing to hop on here and share that with the people, dude.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Appreciate you reaching out. Anytime that you want to do it, holler at me. We can run it back.
Yeah, man. Now the next fight you got to go for. What was your time on this one? 2.9 seconds. You got to go for like 2.7.
Yeah. So that's what they put it in the book as 2.9. But if you go to my Instagram, I cut it down and added a timer on there. And at 1.00, his face is kissing the mat. And at 2.1, the referee's waving it off.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty tough to beat, man. Going point
Yeah.
0.9 or point 0.8 is like that's
It's going to
that's
be, I mean, it's hard to touch somebody that fast. When they say
dude.
go, it's hard to make your body react and then actually be able to touch. Like he was trying to avoid the punch. It wasn't like he was standing there waiting for it to come.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just touching him is hard. And then with enough force to put him to sleep is going to be really hard. There was one that was really close to it. There was a counter punch. A guy dove off the line like I did, and he got countered and knocked out. And they put it down as 4 seconds, but it was actually like 2.8, 2.9. It was bare. Mine was just like a few tenths of a second faster.
Wow.
But I don't see how it's going to be beaten. It's going to be really freaking hard. And if it does get beat, I can guarantee you it's not going to be by a 135 pounder who moved up to fight a 9-1 favorite.
Right. Yeah, yeah, the context of that is also very important. Like the
Yeah,
whole situation.
Yeah, you're gonna
Wow.
if it happens, it's gonna be the other way around. It's gonna be a 9-1 favorite who does it to somebody coming up in weight. Like
Hmm.
um, I think all those things are. I bring it up every time I talk about it because I think it's important to throw those things out there. Like, you know, this wasn't just like a like I got on the internet afterwards. And people are talking about my opponent as if he's like, a can. Like they got this guy off the street out of a taxi to come fight me or something. When in reality, I'm the one that was supposed to be, the bum in there. Like he was supposed to walk through me. And that was supposed to be. He had a film crew there. Like that was supposed to be like his launch pad. And there was just no way I was letting that happen.
Wow, dude. Yeah. Just goes to show, man. That's why you don't quit, man. You never know what could happen. You never know when
Yeah.
that moment's coming. You just keep showing up,
Yep.
man.
Success is right on the other side of where everybody stops. I feel like everybody gets right to the cusp, and if they would just push over that next hill, they would see, the light at the end of the tunnel, and they just can't ever make it over that hump.
Yeah. Well, man, really good stuff. Thank you for your time today. Um, I know you're busy. You got stuff going on, so I appreciate you taking the time. Any last thing you want to leave the audience with? Any like final like anything I should have asked you? Anything you want to say that's super important?
No, man. I mean, just the message that I want to put out there to people is, we're not promised tomorrow. We don't know what's going to come. And that I never really faced a whole lot of death in my younger years. And as an adult, it's hit me really hard, all at once, and that's caused me to reflect a lot. And I just want people to realize, like, take every opportunity that you have and just pursue it. If it's something that you have a passion for, or something that you desire to do, don't don't let anybody tell you that it's not worth it, or that you can't do it, or any of those things. Like if it's something that you desire, put your head down and just go. At the end of the day, even if you don't get to where you want to be, you're going to get way further than anybody ever imagined you would. There's nobody ever thought that I was going to make it to where I'm at now, and I can assure you that I'm only here for a minute, and I'm only going up.
Let's go, dude. I love that. All right, man. Well, hey, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time. You guys out there watching and listening, go follow Justin on Instagram. Go reach out to him, support him. Let's get this dude to the next level. I love you guys. See you next time.